The first thing my wife said when we unlocked the front door wasn't "it's beautiful" or "we finally did it." It was, "Do you hear that?" I laughed, because that's what you do when your wife asks something unsettling in an empty house you just bought for less than market value. "Hear what?" She didn't answer immediately. She stepped inside slowly, her shoes tapping against the hardwood floors that had been recently refinished but still carried faint scratches like scars beneath varnish. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating suspended dust in the air. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older, damp, closed in. Emma stood still in the foyer, head tilted. "It's breathing," she whispered. I rolled my eyes, set down the boxes, and closed the door behind us. Old houses creak. They settle. They sigh when the temperature shifts. That's normal. Breathing is not. We moved to Blackridge because we needed a reset. After everything that happened last year after the hospital, the quiet nights, the way Emma stopped sleeping and started staring at walls, I thought a fresh start would fix things. The miscarriage had hollowed her out in ways I didn't understand. It hollowed me too, but grief feels different for men. We bury it in work, in routines, in silence. Emma carried it in her body. And when the doctor gently suggested a change of environment might help, when our realtor mentioned a motivated seller in a quiet town 3 hours away, I convinced myself this was fate. Blackridge was small, peaceful, almost aggressively normal. Too normal. No traffic lights, no chain stores, one grocery shop, one gas station, one diner with a flickering neon sign that said open even when it wasn't. The kind of town where everyone watches you unpack. The house sat at the end of Briar Hollow Road, surrounded by skeletal trees that clawed at the sky. 2 stories, white siding, a wraparound porch. Shutters painted a faded green. It was the kind of place you'd see on a postcard or in a true crime documentary. The first week was fine. Emma unpacked meticulously, placing framed photos along the mantelpiece, arranging dishes like she was restoring order to chaos. She smiled more, cooked dinner, played music while cleaning. I felt hopeful. Then the sleepwalking started. I woke up the first night to find the bed cold. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. I assumed she'd gone to the bathroom, but when I stepped into the hallway, I found her standing at the top of the staircase, perfectly still, her back to me. "Em." She didn't respond. The house was silent, not quiet silent, like the air itself was holding its breath. "Emma," I said again, softer this time. She tilted her head slightly, not toward me, toward the wall. And that's when I heard it, a low, rhythmic sound. Not pipes, not wind, not wood settling. It was subtle, but it was there. Inhale, exhale. The house wasn't creaking, it was breathing. Emma stepped forward slowly, descending the stairs one at a time, bare feet silent against the wood. I followed her down. "Emma, wake up." She reached the bottom of the staircase and walked toward the living room wall, the one facing the trees. Then she pressed her palm flat against it and smiled, a slow, serene smile, like someone greeting an old friend. I grabbed her shoulders. "Emma." Her eyes snapped open. She looked confused. "What? You were sleepwalking?" She blinked at me. I was dreaming. "About what?" She hesitated. Then she laughed lightly. "It's stupid. Tell me." She glanced at the wall, then back at me. I dreamed the house was lonely. The next morning, she didn't remember smiling, but she remembered the dream. She described it over coffee like she was recounting a pleasant memory. "It felt sad," she said, "like it had been empty too long, like it needed someone to talk to." I tried to keep my voice steady. "It's a house, Em." "I know," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I know that." But her eyes drifted toward the living room again, toward the wall. Things escalated after that. She began spending hours in the living room, not watching TV, not reading, just sitting, facing that wall. Sometimes she'd rest her head against it. Sometimes she'd whisper. I caught her once. She didn't hear me come in. Her hand was pressed flat against the paint. "I'm here," she murmured. "You don't have to be quiet anymore." My blood ran cold. "Emma." She jumped, startled. "You scared me." "Who were you talking to?" She hesitated. "No one." "You said I'm here." She laughed. "I was talking to myself." But her hand didn't move from the wall. Not immediately. It slid down slowly, reluctantly. Then came the smell. It started faint, like wet earth after rain. but it grew stronger each day, especially near that wall. I checked for leaks, mold, structural damage, nothing. Dry as bone. But when I pressed my ear against it, I heard it again, breathing. And beneath it, something else, a sound like distant scratching. Emma stopped answering her phone, stopped calling her sister, stopped leaving the house. When I asked if she wanted to explore town, she shook her head. I don't think it likes when I'm gone. My stomach tightened. Who? She looked at me like I was slow. The house. 3 nights ago, I woke up again at 3:17 a.m. The bed was empty. But this time, I didn't hear footsteps downstairs. I heard something else. A soft humming, coming from inside the walls. Low, melodic, like a lullaby sung through layers of wood and insulation. I followed the sound. It led me to the living room. The wall. It looked different. The paint seemed darker, damp, and Emma wasn't standing in front of it. She was kneeling, her fingers digging into the drywall. There were cracks, long ones, splitting outward from where her hands pressed. "Emma!" I shouted. She turned toward me slowly, and I swear to God her smile was too wide. Not unnatural, just too pleased. "It's opening," she whispered. The wall shifted, not crumbled, shifted, like something on the other side had pressed back, and for a brief, impossible second, I saw an indentation, the shape of a hand, pushing outward from inside the wall, trying to touch her. I grabbed her and pulled her away. The cracking stopped immediately. The breathing faded. The wall looked normal again, except for faint lines in the paint, like healed scars. Emma started crying, not hysterical, just quiet, disappointed. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "Done what?" It was almost ready. "Tore what?" She looked at me, and for the first time since we moved, I didn't recognize her. "It's been alone for so long," she whispered, "and it's hungry. I haven't told anyone." Because how do you explain that your wife might be falling in love with a house, or that the house might love her back? But tonight, as I'm writing this, I can hear it again. That slow inhale, that patient exhale. And Emma is downstairs, talking softly, like she's reassuring something. And I'm starting to realize something worse than the house breathing. It only breathes when she's near it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed listening to the faint murmur of Emma's voice drifting up from downstairs, blending with the subtle rhythmic breathing that had become the house's pulse. The sound was so consistent now that it felt mechanical, intentional. Inhale, exhale, pause, like it was listening too. When the murmuring stopped, I waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow, measured, almost delicate. I shut my eyes and forced my breathing to steady as she entered the bedroom. The mattress dipped as she climbed in beside me. Her skin felt cold when her arm brushed mine, not chilled from the air, cold from something deeper. She lay still for a long time. Then, softly, so softly I almost thought I imagined it, she whispered, "It knows you're awake." My eyes snapped open. She was facing away from me, her breathing slow, even, asleep. The next morning, the cracks in the living room wall were gone, not patched, not repaired, gone. I ran my fingers across the surface where they'd split the night before. Smooth paint, dry, solid, but it felt warm, warmer than the surrounding walls, like skin. Emma stood in the kitchen doorway watching me. "You shouldn't antagonize it," she said. I turned sharply. "I'm not antagonizing anything." She tilted her head, studying me in a way that made my spine tighten. "It doesn't like being doubted." "What does that even mean?" She didn't answer. She just smiled faintly and returned to making coffee. That afternoon, I went into town alone. I told myself I needed fresh air, normalcy, human noise. The diner was nearly empty, just an old man at the counter stirring black coffee that looked thick as oil. He glanced up when I entered. "You the new folks on Briar Hollow?" I hesitated. "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "How's the house treating you?" I forced a smile. "It's fine." He stirred his coffee again. "You know why it was cheap?" I didn't answer. He leaned closer. "They don't list everything in the paperwork." My mouth felt dry. "Like what?" He looked toward the windows before lowering his voice. "Last family that lived there, husband and wife. No kids. They kept to themselves. Folks said she started acting strange." A cold ripple ran through me. "Strange how?" Talking to herself. "Standing in the yard at night, touching the walls." He paused. Husband tried to tear part of it down, said there was something wrong inside. I swallowed. What happened? The old man's spoon stopped moving. They found him in the basement. The words seemed to hang there. How? I asked. He met my eyes. Inside the walls. I left without finishing my coffee. Back home, Emma was in the living room, kneeling again. Her fingertips pressed against the same spot, only now the paint looked softer, not cracked, indented, like something had been pushing from the other side repeatedly. Emma. She didn't turn. It told me about them, she said calmly. About who? The man who tried to break it. Her voice trembled not with fear, with pity. He heard it. I felt something snap inside me. It's wood and drywall. Her head turned slowly toward me. Her expression wasn't anger. It was disappointment. You're not listening. I stepped forward and grabbed her shoulders. Emma, this isn't real. Her pupils looked slightly too wide. It is to me. Behind her, the wall pulsed, just slightly, like a muscle twitching under skin. That night, the breathing was louder. Not in the living room, in the bedroom. I woke to the sound directly behind our headboard. Inhale, exhale. The wall vibrated faintly with each motion. Emma was already sitting up, smiling at it. It's closer now, she whispered. I scrambled out of bed and shoved the dresser away from the wall. The breathing didn't stop. It moved, like it had shifted sideways, following us. I pressed my ear against the dry wall and heard something else. Not scratching this time. Whispering, faint, layered. Multiple voices overlapping in a low murmur. I jerked back. Emma reached out and placed her palm flat against the wall. It's not what you think, she murmured. The whispering grew louder, like it was responding to her touch. Emma, step away. They were lonely too, she said. Who? Her gaze slid toward me slowly. The ones inside. My stomach dropped. Inside what? She blinked. Inside it. I didn't sleep again. Instead, I waited for morning and then drove to the hardware store in town, bought a sledgehammer. The man at the register didn't ask questions, but his eyes lingered on me too long. When I got home, Emma was humming in the living room, a tune I didn't recognize, low, melodic, the same rhythm as the breathing. I gripped the sledgehammer. Move. She didn't. Emma. She turned to face me, calm. It won't let you. Move. Her eyes flickered toward the wall. Then back to me. Please don't hurt it. I swung. The hammer connected with drywall. The impact echoed through the house, but the wall didn't cave in. It dented, like flesh. The sound it made wasn't a crack. It was a wet thud. And then the breathing stopped. Complete silence. Emma gasped. The dent in the wall slowly smoothed itself out, like skin knitting closed. And then the house exhaled. A long, deep, shuddering breath. The floorboards trembled beneath us. The lights flickered. The whispering rose to a frantic chorus. And Emma screamed, not in fear, in pain. She collapsed, clutching her stomach. Stop, she cried. You're hurting it. The wall bulged outward violently. A shape pressing from inside. Multiple shapes. Hands. Dozens of them, outlining themselves beneath the paint. Reaching. Straining. I stumbled back. The sledgehammer slipped from my hands. Emma crawled toward the wall. No, 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 she sobbed. I'm sorry. The hands withdrew. Slowly. One by one. The breathing returned. Shallow. Wounded. Emma turned to me with tears streaking her face. You've made it angry. That evening she locked the bedroom door. Not to keep something out. To keep me out. She stayed in the living room, talking softly, apologizing, promising. I sat in the kitchen, hands shaking, trying to process what I'd seen, what I'd heard, what I'd felt. And sometime after midnight, the breathing stopped entirely. The silence was worse, because in that silence I heard movement. Inside the walls, not scratching, not whispering, crawling. And it wasn't just in one place anymore. It was everywhere, above me, below me, behind me, like something vast had stretched its limbs for the first time. And then Emma's voice floated through the darkness. Clear, calm, certain. It says you don't belong here. The walls shifted, all at once, like the house had turned its attention toward me. The night the house decided I didn't belong was the first time I truly understood fear. Not the sharp, panicked kind, the slow kind, the kind that settles into your bones and stays there. Emma stood in the doorway between the living room and the kitchen, her silhouette framed by the dim lamp behind her. The walls around her seemed closer somehow, the angles wrong, the air thick. "It says you don't belong here," she repeated softly. I forced myself to stand. "This is our house." Her expression flickered pity almost. "No," she whispered. "It was never ours." The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, but not in the usual way. The sound traveled outward, rippling along the hallway like a signal being passed from one beam to the next. The crawling inside the walls grew louder, not frantic, organized, deliberate, like something repositioning itself. "You need to leave," Emma said gently, "before it has to make you." My mouth went dry. "Make me what?" She didn't answer. Behind her, the living room wall pulsed again. And this time it didn't look like hands pressing from the inside. It looked like faces, subtle at first, contours forming beneath the paint, foreheads, noses, open mouths straining for air. I staggered backward, knocking into the kitchen table. "This isn't real," I muttered. "This isn't real." Emma stepped closer. "It's more real than you think." I grabbed my keys from the counter. "I'm getting help." She shook her head slowly. "You won't make it to the car. Watch me." The front door was 10 steps away. I counted them. 1. The breathing resumed loud, rapid. 2. The hallway narrowed. I swear it did. The walls leaned inward by inches I could feel. 3. The lights flickered violently. 4. The door handle rattled on its own. 5. The whispering returned, layered and urgent, not random words. My name, over and over. "Sis." The floor beneath my feet softened. Not sagging soft, like stepping onto thick muscle. 7. The door warped slightly inward. 8. Emma's voice trembled behind me. "Please don't make it do this." 9. The wood around the doorframe split. 10. The door slammed shut before I could reach it. The lock twisted on its own, and from inside the walls came a deep, resonant sound, not breathing, not whispering. A growl. I turned slowly. Emma was crying, but not because she was afraid. Because she felt guilty. "I tried to tell it," she whispered. "I told it you just needed time." "Time for what?" She placed a hand on her stomach. The gesture was so small I almost missed it, and that's when something cold sank into my gut. "Emma," I said carefully, "what did you promise it?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes glistened. "It says it can give us another chance." The room felt suddenly smaller. "What are you talking about?" "It says it can fix what we lost." The words hit like a physical blow. "No." Her breathing grew shaky. "It can grow things. It grows inside itself all the time." The crawling in the walls intensified, as if reacting to her confession. "You don't understand," she said, stepping toward me. "It's alive. It nurtures. It protects what belongs to it by trapping them in the walls." I snapped. Her eyes flicked toward the living room. "They don't leave. That's not protection, Emma." As I stopped, because the faces beneath the paint were clearer now, and I recognized one, the old man from the diner, or something that looked like him. His mouth opened wide in a silent scream. Emma grabbed my hands. "It told me it needs space." My heart pounded. "Space for what?" She looked at me with a strange, radiant certainty. "For us." The wall behind her split down the center with a slow, deliberate tear, not shattering, opening, like lips parting. Inside, there was no insulation, no beams, no wiring. There was darkness, thick and wet and alive. It pulsed faintly, and I could hear it clearly now, multiple heartbeats, overlapping, sinking, one of them faster than the others, new. Emma stepped toward the opening. "It's ready." I grabbed her arm. "You step in there and I'm dragging you back out." She smiled at me softly. "You won't be able to." From the darkness, something shifted, long, jointed wrong. A limb extended briefly into the light before retreating again, and the whispering changed. It wasn't my name anymore. It was hers, chanting, welcoming. I did the only thing I could think of. I lunged forward and wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her back from the opening. The house reacted instantly. The walls shuddered violently. The ceiling cracked. The breathing became erratic. The darkness inside the wall rippled outward, and something grabbed my wrist. Cold. Soft, but strong. I screamed and yanked free, skin tearing slightly under the grip. Emma collapsed to her knees. "You're hurting it," she sobbed again. The opening in the wall widened further. Inside, I saw movement, shapes layered over one another. Human silhouettes embedded in the living mass, not dead, not alive, suspended, like seeds in soil, and at the center something smaller, curled, forming. My blood ran cold. "Emma," I whispered. She looked up at me. It said it could try again. The smallest shape twitched, the heartbeat quickened, and for one horrific second it felt hopeful. "I'm burning it down," I said. The words surprised even me. Emma's head snapped up. "No." "Yes, if you destroy it, you destroy everything inside. Good." Her face hardened. "It won't let you." As if summoned by her defiance, the floorboards beneath me split slightly, gripping my ankles like tightening fingers. The walls leaned inward again. The ceiling dipped. The house was closing. And then the breathing stopped completely. Absolute stillness. Emma's eyes widened. "It's choosing." "Choosing what?" She turned slowly toward the opening in the wall. The smaller shape inside shifted again. The heartbeat grew louder, and the whispering became singular. Focused, clear, one voice, not layered, not distorted, a child's. "Daddy." The word echoed softly from within the living dark. My vision blurred, my knees nearly buckled. Emma gasped. "It worked," she breathed. The house inhaled deeply as if waiting for my answer. I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds, minutes, maybe longer. Time doesn't behave properly inside that house anymore. The darkness inside the wall pulsed softly, like the inside of a living lung. The small curled shape at its center shifted again. The faint heartbeat layered beneath the other's faster, fragile, new. And then it said it again. "Daddy." The voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It threaded itself through my ribs and pulled tight. Emma's hand found mine. Her palm was trembling, but her grip was steady. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. I couldn't speak, because I did. And it wasn't just a sound. It was memory. It was the hospital room. The empty crib. The tiny knitted hat folded into a drawer we never opened again. It was everything we lost. The house inhaled slowly, waiting. "Emma," I forced out, my voice cracking. "That's not ours." She looked at me like I'd struck her. "It could be." "No," I said, louder now. "It's mimicking us. It's using us." Her expression hardened in a way I hadn't seen before. "You think I don't know that?" she whispered. "You think I didn't fight it at first?" The walls shivered slightly. "I told it no," she continued, "for days. I told it I wouldn't trade anything. I wouldn't give anything." My stomach twisted. "And then?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the darkness. It said it doesn't need much. The floor beneath my feet felt softer, warmer, alive. What did it ask for? I demanded. Emma hesitated. Then she said it. "Just you." The house exhaled. Satisfied, I stepped back slowly. "Emma," it said, "if you stay," she said, her voice trembling but certain it can grow properly. "It needs something steady, something strong." The whispering from the walls rose slightly, like wind through hollow spaces. "You're the anchor," she whispered. "And if I don't?" Her gaze flicked to the darker corners of the room. It said it will take what it needs eventually. The faces beneath the paint became clearer again, pressing, straining, not just watching anymore. Hungry. The small shape inside the wall stretched slightly. A tiny hand, reaching outward. "Daddy." I staggered forward involuntarily. Emma smiled through tears. "It knows you." "No," I said hoarsely. "It knows what I want." The darkness rippled. The reaching hand grew clearer. It looked almost real. Too real. I felt something brush my ankle. I looked down. The floorboards had separated slightly. Thin, pale tendrils curling upward between the cracks. Testing. The house wasn't asking. It was closing. I ran. Not toward the door. Toward the kitchen. Emma screamed my name, but I didn't stop. I yanked open drawers, knocking utensils aside until I found what I was looking for. Matches. Under the sink cleaning supplies. Anything flammable. Behind me, the walls groaned. The ceiling bowed slightly downward like something pressing from above. "Don't!" Emma sobbed, running toward me. "Please!" "I won't let it use us," I shouted. The house reacted violently. The opening in the wall widened further, darkness spilling outward like thick smoke. The child's voice shifted. It wasn't soft anymore. It was urgent. "Daddy, it's cold." The words pierced straight through me. My hand shook. For one terrifying second, I almost dropped the matches. Almost. Emma grabbed my arm. "If you burn it, you burn everything," she cried. "What if it's real?" I looked at her. really looked at her. Her skin seemed paler now, almost translucent. Fine, dark veins spidered faintly beneath the surface of her neck, like roots. "How long?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Her silence told me enough. The walls lunged, not metaphorically. They moved. The hallway behind me narrowed violently, wood bending inward like ribs closing around lungs. The tendrils at my feet tightened, cold, wet, gripping. The darkness from the torn walls surged outward in a slow wave crawling across the ceiling. And then I saw it clearly. Inside the blackness weren't just faces. They were layered, embedded, preserved. Men, women, some old, some young, all with their eyes open, watching, not screaming anymore, just waiting. The house didn't kill. It absorbed, it kept, and it grew. The small shape at the center twisted slightly again, its features flickering, not stable, like it couldn't quite decide what it was supposed to look like. It was building itself from us, from our grief, from my longing. Emma collapsed to her knees again. "It said it would keep me safe," she whispered. "It said I wouldn't feel empty anymore." The house pulsed warmly at her words. It wasn't love, it was cultivation. I struck the match. The tiny flame looked impossibly small in that breathing darkness. The house stilled, completely. No whispering, no movement. Even the heartbeats paused, as if it were thinking, calculating. The child's voice came one last time. Soft, perfect. "I can stay." My chest tightened. The flame trembled inches from the soaked rag in my other hand. Emma looked up at me, and for the first time since we moved, she looked afraid. Not for the house, for me. The tendrils tightened suddenly around my legs. Hard. Pain shot upward as the floor split open beneath me, dragging me down to my knees. The flame nearly went out. The darkness surged forward like a wave breaking, and Emma screamed not in sorrow, not in devotion, in realization. "It lied," she whispered. The small shape inside the wall convulsed violently, its outline distorting, stretching, multiplying. It wasn't becoming a child. It was dividing, growing more hollows to fill, more spaces to feed. The house didn't want a family. It wanted continuity. I slammed the flame into the rag. Fire erupted instantly. The house shrieked, a sound that wasn't wood or wind or voices, but something ancient and furious. The darkness recoiled violently as flames crawled up the wall. The tendrils loosened. The faces beneath the paint contorted, finally screaming in unison. Emma scrambled toward me. The ceiling split open above us. Blackness poured downward like ink. The fire spread fast too fast, feeding on something more than wood. The house thrashed around us, walls buckling, beams cracking. But even as it burned, it inhaled, one last time, deep, violent, desperate. And I swear I felt it try to pull us inside with it. The last thing I remember clearly is grabbing Emma's hand and running toward the front door as flames consumed the hallway. This time the door opened, like it wanted us gone. We stumbled out onto the lawn as the windows shattered inward instead of out. The fire roared from within, but it sounded wrong, muffled, contained, like the house was burning from the inside out, screaming as it collapsed into itself. And just before the roof caved in, I heard it. One final whisper carried through smoke. "We'll grow again." The house burned to the foundation. No bodies were found. No remains in the walls. Nothing beneath the rubble but ash and blackened beams. The town said it was faulty wiring. They didn't ask many questions. Blackridge rarely does. Emma hasn't spoken about it since, but sometimes late at night she rests her hand on her stomach again, absent-mindedly. And I don't ask why. Because last week when I woke at exactly 3:17 a.m., the room was silent. No breathing, no whispering, nothing. Until I felt it, faint, beneath my palm, resting on her abdomen. A small, rhythmic heartbeat. This isn't over. I didn't tell Emma that I felt it. That faint, impossible heartbeat under my hand at 3:17 a.m. I kept my palm there longer than I should have, barely breathing, counting. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't mine. It wasn't hers. It was lighter, faster. Then it stopped, not faded. Stopped, like something had realized it had been noticed. Emma didn't stir, but her lips curved slightly in her sleep. The doctors said it was stress. Phantom sensations aren't uncommon after trauma, they explained gently. Grief does strange things to the body. They ran tests anyway. Blood work, scans. Everything came back normal. Emma wasn't pregnant. There was no heartbeat, no anomaly, nothing. But that night at 3:17 a.m. it came back, stronger. I pressed my hand down harder this time, and I felt it push back. From the inside, we moved again. 2 towns over, apartment complex, concrete walls, no wood, no crawl spaces, no history. I told myself the house had burned. It was over, but grief doesn't burn. And whatever lived in that place, it didn't feel like something confined to lumber and nails. It felt older, rooted, portable. Emma started humming again, not constantly, just sometimes. In the kitchen, in the shower, in bed, the same low melodic rhythm. I didn't recognize it at first, but one night it clicked. It was the breathing, the house's inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Only now it was coming from her chest rising deeper than necessary, her exhale lingering too long, as if she was sinking to something else. The first sign something was truly wrong came 3 weeks after the fire. I came home from work and found her sitting cross-legged on the living room floor. No furniture moved, no walls cracked, just Emma, hands resting on her stomach, smiling softly. "You felt it too," she said without looking up. My throat tightened. "Felt what? It's stronger now. There's nothing there." She looked at me slowly, not angry, not confused. "Certain." It followed. The word echoed in my skull. What followed? She tilted her head the same way she had the first night in the old house, listening. And for a brief, horrifying second I thought I heard it too. Not through walls, through pipes, through vents. A faint rhythmic pressure in the air, like distant breathing traveling through metal ducts. I checked the building plans. Old habit, concrete foundation, steel framing. But buildings don't need wood to breathe. They just need space and bodies. Emma stopped going outside again, stopped answering calls again, stopped sleeping normally. But she wasn't sleepwalking this time. She was nesting, rearranging furniture, measuring walls, touching corners. I caught her one night, pressing her ear to the floor. "It likes the plumbing," she whispered. My blood ran cold. The neighbors started complaining, said they heard scratching at night. Inside their walls, behind their sinks. One woman downstairs swore she heard a baby crying through the pipes. Management blamed rodents. Maintenance tore open panels. Found nothing, but the complaints kept spreading, like something moving unit to unit. Testing, learning, growing. The next time I woke at 3:17 a.m. Emma was sitting upright in bed, not moving, not blinking, just staring at the ceiling. "It's almost ready," she whispered. My heart pounded. "Emma, there is no it." She turned toward me slowly. "You burned the shell." The words hit like ice water. "The shell?" I croaked. "It doesn't need wood," she said softly. "It needs room." Her hand slid down to her stomach again, and this time there was no denying it. Her skin shifted. From the inside, a ripple beneath the surface, like something turning over in dark water. I grabbed her shoulders. "We're going to the hospital." She didn't resist. That scared me more than anything. At the ER, they ran scans again. Longer this time, more detailed. The technician frowned at the screen, called someone else in. Whispers. "Low. Urgent." The doctor came back with forced calm. "There's a mass." My vision tunneled. "What kind of mass?" He hesitated. "It's not presenting like a typical growth." Emma smiled faintly. "It's growing correctly now," she murmured. The doctor looked confused. "It appears compartmentalized," he continued carefully. "Layered, layered, like the walls." They admitted her for observation. I stayed by her bedside. Machines hummed softly around us. And then at 3:17 a.m. every monitor flatlined. Not her heartbeat, the machines themselves. Screens went black, lights flickered, the air pressure in the room shifted. And from inside the ventilation above came the breathing. Clear, heavy, close. Emma's eyes snapped open. "They found us faster this time," she whispered. The ceiling tile above her bed bulged downward slightly. I froze. The bulge pressed lower, stretching the tile, until the faint outline of fingers appeared beneath the cheap hospital material. Pressing down, reaching, the machines rebooted suddenly, beeping violently. The bulge vanished. The ceiling returned to normal, but the air didn't feel normal. It felt occupied. The doctors scheduled emergency surgery. They didn't understand what they were looking at. Neither did I. But I knew one thing. The house hadn't burned. It had relocated into the only place we carried with us, Emma. The night before the surgery, she looked at me with clear eyes. No haze, no distant listening, just her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" I thought it loved us. My throat closed. "What does it want now?" She swallowed. "It doesn't want to grow inside walls anymore." A cold dread spread through me. "Then where?" Her gaze drifted slowly to the maternity wing sign down the hall. And for the first time I understood. It wasn't trying to replace what we lost. It was trying to multiply. Hospitals are full of empty rooms, and newborn lungs are very good at learning how to breathe. Hospitals have their own kind of breathing. The low hum of ventilation, the steady rhythm of distant monitors, the soft shuffle of rubber soles against polished floors. But once you've heard something else breathe, something deliberate, something patient, you can tell the difference. And that night, as Emma lay in her hospital bed awaiting surgery, I could tell. The hospital wasn't the only thing inhaling. They scheduled the procedure for 6 a.m. Emergency surgical removal of an unidentified layered mass. That's how the consent form phrased it. Layered. The word wouldn't leave my mind. Like rings in a tree, like sediment in stone, like people pressed into walls. Emma slept for a while, but it wasn't natural sleep. Her chest rose too evenly, too deep, as if something else was setting the rhythm. At 3:17 a.m., the lights flickered again. Not just in our room. Down the hallway. Through the cracks beneath the door, I saw shadows shift, stretch, then retract. The machines began to hum out of sync, not failing, syncing with her. The breathing moved through the vents first, slow, testing, then it spread to the walls. A faint vibration through the plaster. The hospital room felt softer, warmer, occupied. Emma's stomach rippled again beneath the thin sheet. This time I saw it clearly. Not random movement, not muscle spasm. Something pushing outward, mapping its shape. And then a small indentation appeared beneath her skin. 5 faint points, like fingertips pressing from inside. My entire body went cold. "Emma," I whispered. Her eyes opened immediately. "It's time," she said calmly. "For surgery," I said quickly. She shook her head slowly. "No." The indentation moved, sliding across her abdomen, exploring, learning the boundaries, and the breathing deepened. Through the walls, through the floor, through the building. A scream echoed faintly down the hall. Not Emma, not from our room. Another patient, another wing. The sound cut off abruptly. Then came a chorus of alarms, doors opening, footsteps running. The building shifted slightly, like it was settling, but it wasn't settling. It was stretching. Emma sat up slowly in bed. The fourth line tugged from her arm and fell loose. She didn't bleed. "I thought it would need you," she whispered to me, but it learned something. My voice shook. What did it learn? Her gaze drifted upward toward the ceiling vent, that it doesn't need anchors anymore. The ceiling tile above us dipped again, not one tile. All of them, like something vast, was pressing down across the entire floor at once. The faint outline of faces appeared just beneath the paint of the walls, not clear, not fully formed, but emerging. The hospital was becoming porous. I backed toward the door. "We're leaving." "It won't let you," she said softly. The door handle rattled, locked. From the outside, a nurse's voice echoed faintly in the hallway. Panicked, confused. "The walls." Her words cut off in a choking gasp. Emma's expression shifted. Not joy, not devotion, understanding. "It's faster here," she whispered. More rooms, more hollow spaces. The breathing became layered. Dozens of rhythms overlapping, like multiple lungs filling at once. And then from somewhere deep in the maternity ward, a newborn cried. But it wasn't a single cry. It multiplied, echoed, layered over itself unnaturally. Too many, too fast, too synchronized. The walls in our room cracked not outward, inward, splitting toward Emma. The cracks converged around her bed like veins leading to a heart. Her stomach moved violently now, the outline beneath her skin shifting faster, dividing, reconfiguring. I lunged toward her and the floor gave way beneath my knees, not collapsing, softening, like stepping into muscle. Cold tendrils wrapped around my ankles again, but weaker than before, thinner. Because the house, no, not the house, the thing wasn't focused on me anymore. It didn't need me. It had found something better. Emma gasped suddenly. Pain, real pain. She clutched her stomach as the shape beneath her skin stretched outward sharply. Her body arched unnaturally. The monitors beside her exploded in sparks. The ceiling split open above the bed. Darkness poured downward, not like smoke, like fluid, thick, alive. The walls around the room peeled back slightly, revealing layers beneath the plaster. Not pipes, not beams. Veins. Thin, branching, pulsing veins embedded throughout the building. The hospital hadn't been invaded. It had been infiltrated, and now it was being rewired. Emma screamed. The sound was raw and human and terrified. For the first time since we moved, she wasn't calm. "It's too fast," she cried. The darkness above her pulsed in response. The shape beneath her skin expanded sharply, stretching her abdomen outward in an unnatural curve. And then the child's voice came again. But it wasn't singular anymore. It was layered. Hundreds of them. "Daddy." From the walls, from the ceiling, from down the hall, from inside her. The tendrils around my legs tightened briefly, then loosened completely. I could move, because I wasn't the target. The maternity ward was. I ran into the hallway, and I wish I hadn't. The walls were breathing visibly now, pulsing in waves. The paint bubbling in spots where faint outlines of hands and faces pressed outward. Nurses pounded on locked doors. One man slammed a crash cart against the elevator doors that refused to open. The crying of newborns echoed through the ventilation, then synchronized, then stopped all at once. The building inhaled deeply. Every light flickered out simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the corridor. And in that pitch-black silence, the breathing came from everywhere, close, surrounding, victorious. I stumbled back into Emma's room. She was lying still now. The darkness above had retreated slightly. Her stomach looked normal again, flat, empty. She turned her head slowly toward me. "It's not inside me anymore," she whispered. My voice barely formed. "Where is it?" The hospital answered. From every wall, every floor, every ceiling panel, a layered rhythmic inhale, then exhale. And from somewhere deep in the building, a door creaked open. The hospital changed after that night, not visibly, not in ways inspectors could measure. But if you've ever lived inside something that breathes, you know when air feels borrowed. They told us there had been a systems failure, electrical surge, temporary ventilation malfunction, a few patients transferred out of caution. No deaths reported, no incidents filed. But the maternity ward was closed indefinitely. Renovations, that was the word they used. Renovations. Emma was discharged 2 days later. No mass, no internal damage, no explanation. The doctors were polite but distant now, like they didn't want to look at her too long, or at me. We stepped outside into cold morning air, and for a brief second, I thought it was over. The sky was wide, open, limitless. No walls, no ceilings, nothing to contain breath. But Emma stopped walking halfway across the parking lot. She tilted her head, listening. I froze. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. I didn't, and that terrified me more than if I had. Because if she still could, then whatever it was hadn't left her completely. We didn't go back to the apartment. I didn't want shared walls, shared vents, shared foundations. We checked into a roadside motel off the highway. Single story, detached units, brick exterior, concrete slab. No upstairs neighbors, no crawl space, no hidden ducts connecting room to room. I checked. I inspected everything. Tapped walls, lifted mattresses, removed vent covers. Emma watched me quietly. "It doesn't need wood," she said gently. "I know," I muttered. "It doesn't need buildings." I stopped moving. "What does it need then?" She met my eyes. "Space." The first night at the motel was quiet, unnaturally quiet. No breathing. No whispering, no 3:17 a.m. I didn't sleep anyway, just stared at the ceiling and waited for it to ripple. It didn't. But at 3:17 a.m. Emma sat up, not abruptly, slowly, deliberately. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and placed her bare feet on the carpet. "You're not alone anymore," she said softly. The words weren't for me. I didn't hear anything, but I felt something. A pressure shift, subtle, like the room had inhaled without sound. The next morning, the motel owner knocked on our door. Mid-50s, tired eyes. "You folks hear anything strange last night?" he asked. My heart dropped. "No," I said too quickly. He scratched the back of his neck. Couple guests said the walls were vibrating. I forced a smile. Old building, He nodded uncertainly. Maybe. As he walked away, Emma closed the door gently. "It's learning to be quiet," she whispered. We left that afternoon, drove without destination, highways stretching endlessly in front of us. Fields, open sky, no buildings close enough to touch. If it needed structures, we'd deny it structures. If it needed rooms, we'd deny it rooms. We parked that night in an empty rest area. No trees nearby, no tunnels, just asphalt and open air. Emma stepped out of the car and stood in the middle of the lot. Wind moved freely around us. For the first time in months, I felt air that wasn't shared. Then she closed her eyes and inhaled, deep, too deep. Her chest expanded beyond natural capacity for a brief, impossible second. And I saw it, not in walls, not in floors, in the air. A subtle distortion, like heat rising from pavement, but rhythmic, expanding and contracting around her. The breathing wasn't tied to buildings, it was tied to her lungs. "You brought it out," I whispered. She opened her eyes slowly. "No," she said calmly. "It came out on its own." The air around us pulsed faintly. The distortion spread outward across the empty parking lot. No walls to press against, no ceilings to hide within, just space. And it filled it. The ground beneath our feet vibrated gently, not like an earthquake, like something enormous turning over in sleep beneath the surface of the world. "You burned its first body," Emma said quietly. "The house. You forced it to adapt." I stared at her. "It adapted into you." She shook her head. "Through me." The difference felt important and catastrophic. "It doesn't want walls," she continued. "Walls were limits." The distortion in the air expanded further, wider, farther than the rest area, farther than the highway. The stars above seemed to flicker slightly, like distant lights reacting to breathe. "What does it want?" I asked. Emma looked up at the sky. "It wants corners." My blood ran cold. "There are no corners here." She smiled faintly. "Not yet." The wind stopped abruptly, completely. The night became still, heavy. The air around us thickened, and I felt it, the world itself, holding breath. Emma exhaled slowly, and when she did, the horizon bent, just slightly, not visibly enough to alarm someone passing by, but enough. The open sky didn't feel open anymore. It felt contained, folded, as if invisible walls had begun rising around the edges of everything. I stumbled backward. "What are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything," she whispered. "It's using negative space." The asphalt beneath us cracked faintly, not from pressure, from contraction, like the edges of reality pulling inward to create shape. Corners. I realized something horrifying then. It didn't need buildings. It didn't need materials. It needed boundaries. And boundaries exist everywhere, where light meets shadow, where land meets sky, where silence meets sound. It was learning to live in transitions, in edges, in the thin, invisible lines we never notice. And there are edges everywhere. The distortion in the air sharpened. I could see faint outlines now, geometric, angles forming where there had been none. The empty parking lot didn't feel infinite anymore. It felt like a room without walls, and something massive had just stepped inside it. The breathing deepened, not from Emma, from everywhere, above, below, around. Emma turned toward me slowly. "It says we're almost ready." "For what?" I demanded. She stepped closer. "For a world without hollow spaces." The ground trembled faintly. The horizon folded slightly more, and the stars above blinked out one by one as if something vast was closing a lid. I finally understood. It was never about our loss. Never about replacing a child. Never about growing inside houses. It was about expansion. About outgrowing containment. About learning how to breathe without needing lungs. And Emma, she had been the doorway. The air grew thick enough to press against my skin. Hard to inhale, hard to exhale. The world narrowing into angles I couldn't see but could feel. Emma reached for my hand. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered. For the first time she looked afraid again, and the breathing stopped. Not fading, not weakening, stopping, like something had fully arrived. The silence that followed was infinite. And then from the empty sky above came one single word. Clear, layered, everywhere at once. Home. When the sky said home, the stars didn't just go out. They folded, not vanished. Folded inward like eyes closing. The darkness above us wasn't absence. It was pressure. A ceiling lowering over a world that had never realized it was a room. The air thickened until breathing felt like swallowing water. Emma's hand tightened around mine, not guiding, not leading, clinging. "I didn't know it would grow this far," she whispered. The horizon bent further. Edges sharpened where there should have been none. The flat line of distant earth kinked at impossible angles, corners forming in open space. And that's when I finally understood what it had always wanted. Containment, not for itself, for us. Human beings crave walls. We build them instinctively. We draw borders around land, rooms, ideas. We define spaces so we can exist safely inside them. But what if something older saw that instinct and learned from it? What if it watched us build houses and realized the world itself could be shaped the same way? The house was practice. The hospital was rehearsal. Emma was the bridge. And now the sky was becoming architecture. The ground beneath us tilted slightly. Not enough to fall, just enough to feel wrong. The empty rest stop parking lot no longer felt open. It felt framed, as if invisible walls were rising miles high at its edges. The air moved differently, circulating, recycling, breathing. The world had become a lung, and it was inhaling us. Emma dropped to her knees suddenly, not in devotion, not in surrender, in pain. She clutched her chest this time. "It's not inside me anymore," she gasped. "Then what? It's inside everything." The realization hit like vertigo. It had stopped using her because it no longer needed a host. It had mapped the concept of structure, of containment, of interior space. And now it was building one large enough to never be burned, one large enough to never be escaped. The sky darkened further, not night. Closure. The faint outline of seams appeared overhead, thin lines stretching across the firmament like hairline cracks in glass. The stars hadn't disappeared. They were behind something, behind layers, like faces in walls. The breathing deepened, slower now, heavier, stable. The world wasn't expanding anymore. It was sealing. "Emma," I whispered, my voice thin in the thickening air. "Can it be stopped?" She looked at me with hollow understanding. "It doesn't think it's hurting anything." That answer chilled me more than malice ever could. It wasn't evil. It was architectural. It believed it was improving the design, eliminating hollow spaces, filling every corner, creating a perfect enclosure, a womb without walls. The wind returned suddenly, but not natural wind. It flowed in patterns, circular, contained. The air no longer drifted freely across the earth. It looped, like ventilation in a closed system. And somewhere deep beneath the asphalt I felt movement, not shifting earth, not tectonic motion. Breathing from below. The ground itself had become layered. The planet was developing interior. The seams in the sky began tightening, pulling inward like stitches being drawn closed. The darkness pressed lower, the world narrowing into something smaller, more compact, more controlled. Emma stood slowly. Her eyes reflected no stars now, only blackness. "It says we were the first room," she whispered. "The house, the hospital, the motel, each a template, each teaching it how to fold space around life." I grabbed her shoulders. "There has to be a floor," I said desperately. "Every structure has one." She searched my face, and for the first time she looked like my wife again. Not a bridge, not a doorway, just Emma. "There is," she said softly. "What?" "It doesn't understand emptiness." The words hung between us. The breathing paused, just slightly, like it was listening. "It thinks emptiness is a mistake," she continued carefully. "Something to correct." And she swallowed. "And we taught it that. We fill silence with noise. We fill grief with replacement. We fill space with walls. It learned from us, so maybe it could learn something else." The seams overhead tightened further. Time was thinning, the world shrinking into its new geometry. I stepped backward, away from Emma. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Creating space." She stared at me, confused. I inhaled deeply, then held my breath, refused to exhale. The air inside my lungs burned almost immediately. The pressure around us shifted faintly. Emma's eyes widened. "It doesn't like that," she said. "Good." I held it longer. My chest screamed, my vision blurred, but I didn't release. The breathing around us faltered, just slightly. The looping wind stuttered. Emma followed. She inhaled and held it. The world convulsed. The seams in the sky trembled, because the thing had modeled itself on us, on lungs, on rhythm, on inhale and exhale. And if we stopped, what did it do? Pain exploded in my ribs. Blackness crowded my vision. Emma swayed beside me. The pressure intensified violently. The sky buckled, the seams fraying. The world groaned like strained beams. And then everything stopped. Not breathing, not moving, not folding. Stopped. Complete, absolute stillness. The kind you only feel in the space between heartbeats. I collapsed forward, air tearing back into my lungs in a desperate gasp. Emma did the same. The night sky snapped back open, stars flooding back into place. Wind scattering freely across open asphalt. The horizon straightened. The pressure vanished. The world felt hollow again, empty, alive. The breathing was gone, not hidden, gone. We stood there shaking under a sky that felt vast and unfinished. No seams, no ángulos, just open darkness dotted with light. Emma looked at me with tears streaming down her face. It didn't understand stopping, she whispered. It only understood filling. We had given it something it couldn't replicate. Absence, refusal, emptiness. And in that void it had nothing to build with. Weeks have passed since that night. No breathing in walls, no ripples in the air, no 3:17 a.m. wake-ups, and hospitals are operating normally again. The maternity wing reopened. The motel owner says the vibrations stopped. The old foundation on Briar Hollow Road is just ash and weeds now. But sometimes when I stand outside under open sky, I feel something strange. Not movement, not pressure, just awareness, like the world is remembering. Learning again, not how to breathe, but how to wait. And every night before I fall asleep, I make sure to leave space. Silence in the room, unfilled corners in the dark, because I've learned something too. If something ever starts breathing in your walls, don't just burn the house. Stop giving it rhythm. And if you ever wake at 3:17 a.m., hold your breath, just to be sure.